now, welcome to the fourth episode of Rusty Knits. I'm Hampton, and this is Rusty.
Hello.
Today we're going to talk about some of the comments we've had. So we'll start with that. Then we'll talk about buying yarn online and some other acquisitions we've made, and then we will talk about works in progress. And Rusty will also show a finished work with that segment. He will then talk about this upcoming art show and a piece of art he's working on right now. And then he's going to show us some of his paper knitting he's done in the past.
Experiments.
But you never know where that might wind up. If it ever winds up anywhere, this may be the only place it ever shows up. And then we'll have shout-outs. So, welcome to the show.
Here we go.
Yeah.
So first up, I wanted to say thanks to a few people. First, Rob Deline talked about all the knitting things that they have in Seattle available. There's 3 gay men's knitting groups a week, and I've heard on Fiber Hustle all the yarn shops in the area. And so since I am from the Northwest, I grew up in Oregon, Salem. I probably will be back in the Northwest soon, so I might have to check it out.
Yeah, we need to drive up to Seattle sometimes.
Yeah, we've gone along the Oregon coast and Portland, which is wonderful, 45 minutes north of where I grew up. And I've been into Washington a little bit, but not with you.
Not with me. We've just done the gorge and seen the waterfalls, Multnomah, and things like that, and some of the beaches along the coastal highway.
Mm-hmm. He spotted a whale.
Yeah, that was cool.
I might have a picture.
No, not of the whale, you don't.
Not of the whale. Oh,
no.
well.
We didn't get a
just
picture
us.
Of that. Just us.
But, so I decided to look online. I've done it recently, but I looked up Dallas yarn, and I haven't found anything, but I got some needles, which I'll show later, and they came with a postcard for the North Texas Art Crawl, which got me looking at it. Now, this is going to be hard to focus, maybe if I hold still.
Just a card. We see what it is.
North Texas Yarn Crawl. And that's coming up, so I'm really curious to see how that goes this year. I haven't been to any other years because I have never been this social as I have been during lockdown. But anyway, the yarn crawl lists, what's the name? DMH Fiber and Yarn, Dallas. And I've called them. I haven't heard back from them yet. I don't think they're quite open yet, but we might actually have a new yarn shop in town, which would be awesome.
Because the point there is in town.
Yeah.
Because you said that this store is probably being opened up like at Beltline and Coit, around that area.
Yeah.
So that's just like,
I think
that's
that
in
was it.
Richardson, just one of the close northern suburbs, and just about 10 miles away from us. Because I went through this whole list, and there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13 different stores listed on here in towns that are part of the Metroplex.
But at least half an hour away, right?
Well, yeah, that's just it. The DFW mega city is roughly the same size as the state of Delaware. And except the population here is like 7 million. And I think Delaware is in the something hundreds of thousands. So it's different. So like the 3 of these are in Bonham, Gainesville, and Whitesboro. And those are all up pretty close to the border of Oklahoma. They're all about 71 miles away from us. So, good distance. The closest one on here is Cedar Hill, which is 17 miles away. But you have to go down I-35 to get there, and it's under construction, and it's a mess. And I try to avoid that. And I don't. Y'all in Minneapolis, is 35 a mess there too? Because it goes 500 miles across Texas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from Oklahoma to Laredo, 35, and it's all city, all the way, and it's under construction, and it's a mess, all the way. Because it just goes from Dallas to Waco to Austin, San Antonio, on and on to Corpus, and then Laredo, and
Well, we should get back to our comments.
Anyway, that's right, comments. But anyway, the other towns and cities around here, even Fort Worth, they're all about 30 miles away. So it'll be good to have one 10 miles. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well,
then John Fleming talked about moths and dealing with moths using a freezer. So now I've got things in my Ziploc bags which were in quarantine. Or now some of them are in the freezer. They're going to do a rotating
I was
trip
looking
to the
for
freezer.
pot roast the other day, and I was like, "What's that?"
It's going to take a while for me. I'm only using a teeny little bit,
Knitting.
Quart size. It's going to take me a while to move it through the freezer, but because we don't have a big freezer, we don't have.
Well, it's one of those French door cabinet freezer things.
We don't hunt here in Dallas.
No.
So, but John also, so I appreciate the information because I'm using it. He also said something about smaller needles, like on the socks I've been working on. And if smaller needle makes for a sturdier, tighter weave fabric, which lasts longer. And I'd never thought about it, but that makes perfect sense. So I ended up getting a few new sets of needles. And so now I've got 0s, 1 and 1.5. So I can go as little as I want. Well, there's probably even smaller than that. There's probably negatives. I don't know. But thank you for that information. And also, Brandy Harris gave me a lot of sock information because I've been using 68 stitches, and she says, well, what she's found is women a lot of times are 64, and men are 72 stitches, and I think she said she uses a 1 or 1.5. So I'm going to be testing that out. And then another friend, Linda
Van Buskirk.
Yeah.
From my church.
She just...
she was her church. She's been there longer than I have. But
right before we started recording, I read a message saying that for my socks, why not try a non-Euclidian heel? Because there's no holes. And I can't resist having a math name like that. So I'm going to have to figure that one out.
Yeah.
So thank you, Linda. And thanks for watching and subscribing.
Also Lesley Murphy had said she was talking about me knowing all about the yarn shop, reminiscing about Holly's yarn shop, which is where we always would see Linda also with a knitting group. And did you want to say something about that?
No, you go ahead.
But one of her ending comment in her comment, she said she ended it with saying, "It won't be long now, and you'll have to share because I'm catching on." Well,
you are right.
You don't never know.
I've been with this guy for how many? 22?
22. We just did that anniversary. I told you we'd never remember.
And he's not giving me the slightest clue that he would knit. Now all of a sudden, I think I might try knitting.
Well, he watches all y'all's podcasts and more. And, sometimes they're on for me. I'll be over here reading or something. And so to me, it's background stuff going on. But it'll be, there's interesting parts. I do pay attention while I'm not paying attention. But the other day you were showing me the channel for Fruity Knitting, that couple that knits.
Mm-hmm.
And
the English couple.
Yeah, and they were interviewed Anna Hrachovec.
Hrachovec or Hrachovec?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how you say it, but we will post a link. And she was talking about her knit toys and her Mochimochi Land.
And I bet a lot of people saw that viral video because it was on
It was a GIF.
Facebook all over the place.
It was on social media.
And it was a little gnome with needles, stop action. She had knit a little gnome, and it was then used in stop action to knit these hearts, these red hearts that would then go up, and then he'd start knitting another one. And it was
I'm sure we're going to pop it in here. Right
well, it's someone else's. I don't. Maybe we'll have a link.
Well, it's on open. It's on the open webs.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we might.
She made the
it.
GIF
if I can figure it out
there. Yeah,
I'm figuring Premiere Pro out.
So anyway, that got me to thinking. Maybe I'm not ready to start doing scarves and mittens and
sure,
functional pieces, but toys intrigue me. So we'll see.
Yeah. So I didn't know he was listening, and now all of a sudden, I think I'm going to try knitting. So we'll see.
I listen. All right.
That's awesome.
Now we're going to start talking about buying yarn online, and we'll move on to our other acquisitions.
Yeah, so because I haven't had a yarn shop, a local yarn shop, not that I could go to it during the first part of the year, or so far, I have had to learn how to... I think we might have a cat intruder, but I'm going to ignore it. I've had to buy a lot more online, and so I've had several purchases, and I just received some recently from LoveCraft, and I'm going to knit a sweater. I showed you in, I think, the first episode, a gray sweater that I had done, and
oh yeah, that you'd knit for me originally.
yeah.
But
Well,
somehow it shrunk before you finished it.
it barely fits me too.
And it didn't fit me.
So I don't know how well this is. These pictures are gonna. Oh wait, how do I get the glare?
You
out
could
of
take
there?
a picture and
So it's a real simple cardigan, and that's what he wants. What Hampton wants, he just wants a cardigan that can slip easily on and off at his desk, and he can
because
keep
at
it
the
on his
office
chair. And...
the AC gets
Oh,
cold.
here's the cover. So it's from Rowan Dalesmen.
It gets cold in the office, and so in the summertime, I like to keep a light sweater at my desk so that when I get cold, I can slip a sweater on. In the winter, I don't need it, usually.
So one thing I've noticed on my purchases, did I cut you off? I don't
No.
want to do that. Okay.
No, you did fine.
I can do that. I get into my own thoughts.
That's fine. You're staying on schedule.
So as I was buying yarn, I got two at pretty much the same time. I got some yarn from Lolodidit. She's a dyer in Las Vegas. And I got yarn from LoveCraft with this Rowan yarn. And the Lolodidit, it was exactly like, and I'll show you in a second. I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me stick with the Rowan. And I was expecting a gray, heathery thing, and it actually looks bluish here because of our reflected light. I don't know if I'm going to be able to block.
And on the screen, it actually looks,
It looks
kind of gray.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Well,
Maybe it is
almost
gray.
looks purple
I have been
in your
thinking
hand to me,
it was
but-
so unexpected that it's because it's black. Because a picture online and in the catalog that I just showed you, or the pattern book, it looked kind of grayish, heathery. But then I took this yarn outside and I was really looking for any other colors in it, and it is pretty. It's got some depth to it. They made the black out of with other colors. Maybe that's always the way it works, but it's almost like I can see other hues in it. But and it's so fuzzy. I have been knitting socks with fingering weight yarn on size 2 needles for a while, and so all of a sudden I do this, and
For
I
about
did,
a month.
yeah, for about a month. Well, it feels like a while.
Time has lost all concept during this lockdown, stay at home. Anyway,
Yeah, it has. And
yeah.
so I really didn't know if I could work with the yarn because all of a sudden it was fuzzy. I decided to try to make a swatch. And at first I was like, this is such open weave. It's so loose because it was on, I had to go up a needle size to make the gauge. And anyway, it threw me off. But then after I started feeling the fabric and seeing how it was going to drape, I really can picture the sweater feeling good with this. It was just kind of a shock because I've been working with such
I think
tighter.
it'll be nice with the open weave like that.
Yeah,
It'll be able to breathe well.
I
and,
can't feel any wind through, so it will warm you up. But
well,
yeah, but anyway, so I ended up being happy with it. I guess my point was that it is hard to buy yarn online, and I think certain colors like black and white are hard to photograph. From my years of photographing my own artwork, black either tends to go all too black, and you aren't getting the subtle graphites and things like that. And white, it just bleaches things out. I mean, blue is kind of hard too. So photographing things are really hard. I mean, if you want to have a color card that you put next to your artwork so that when you photograph it, you can say that's supposed to be pure white. And I mean, you can work with it, but anyway, I can't get mad at him for having a photo of black that's slightly off.
and I think it's going to work. It just wasn't wasn't what we thought we were going to get.
Yeah,
Which is always the issue with buying anything online.
yeah, but anyway, this really doesn't look like anything, and I'll have to show you when I'm knitting it. But
But then your Lolodidit fab.
yeah, and so now I don't have, because I started working with this right away, I don't have the skeins, and they're beautiful when you can show the twisted skeins and expose all the colors. So I actually took a picture of that. I'll put up there. But then and when I'm wrapping, I remember like my grandma showing me how to knit initially, and we always held our hands out with the skein in between, and someone else would wrap it. And over the years I always do it myself, so I put it over my knees and I'm wrapping around my knees, and it is fun to see that ball of yarn go together when there's so many colors going on. And so I got this from Lolodidit. It's called, I'm gonna mess this up, Cano Cristales. Anyway, we'll see how close I got. It's it's beautiful. And the one thing I like about Lolodidit is that you can look at the main yarn. Like I looked up Cano Cristales, and then it had a picture of it, and it interspersed with other colors that looked exactly like the colors that are made up in it, within this. So you can pick those, the breakdown of colors along with it, and really have good combinations. Anyway, so I was really happy, and the colors matched perfectly at Lolodidit, and I got a bunch of mini skeins, which by now I have taken apart, or I've rolled all those up, and I can't pronounce some of these. She has reasons for all these names: Nynaeve, Wonka, Big Girls Don't Cry. And I've been working with all these, which I'll show you a little bit later. But Red Wine and Royal and Rumplestiltskin and Whiskey Kiss, Blazing Sevens and Bumble. I think that's And then I did a little swatch. Hopefully the colors. There should be some good pinks in there.
Yeah, it looks like it is on here.
So anyway, I am really happy with both my purchases, although it was really, I'll really trust the pictures on Lolodidit more. But then, yeah, I also got, and I showed you earlier, I bought my first purchase from West 7th Wool in Fort Worth and got my ChiaoGoo straight little needles.
And you bought these online.
Yeah.
And had them mailed over here.
Yeah.
Even though it's just like 33, 36 miles, but...
I've talked to her on Facebook. She's been real helpful. She sent me information. She gave me a substitute place to go. Told me about Yarn Sub. And so I've been wanting to buy something from her. And so I ended up getting these.
And we'll drive out there when we feel like we can...
She's probably already open.
Probably, but are we ready to be? You know, because we're really kind of restricting where we are going and stuff. And the museums in Fort Worth are great, and we love going out there. It's just we don't do it as often as we should, which is unfortunate. But it's, you know, it's just 30-something miles. But it's across the city. And we have to just get on the freeways and go. And Arlington's halfway in between. And when you get to the middle of Arlington, you got the Cowboy Stadium and the Ranger Stadium and Six Flags on one side of the freeway and Hurricane Harbor on the other side of the freeway. And depending on the season, traffic can be right there in that little mile. You could be there for 30 minutes waiting.
Luckily, I would always have my knitting with me.
Yeah, while somebody else drives.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You wouldn't have it any other way.
I wouldn't. I want to be in control. So, we did go to JoAnn's the other day, one of the local stores. We actually drove out to Mesquite this time just to do something different, but that's just about 10 miles straight down the freeway, straight east on the freeway I-30. So I got some fabrics that I want to start making quilt with to go with some of the shirts that I pulled out of my closet that I can't wear anymore, mainly because I've had them forever and they're falling apart, but I love the fabric. So I bought some new fabrics to mix with them and to do a quilt. I sat and did some cutting with scissors the other day. Now, Rusty is I call him Rusty Scissorhands because he's an expert with scissors. I'll
show you a little later.
Right, he's going to show us, but I'm not, and my skills are not that good. So I've been watching some YouTube videos on beginning quilting because it's like I said, it's been 30 years for me. And so what I need to go do is get one of those self-healing boards and the rotor cutter and those plastic geometric ruler things. Looks like stuff out of your drafting box, but it's the same things. Anyway, but I did buy a couple of tote bag kits that are real easy. The pieces are already measured. All you got to do is cut them out and then sew them. And so I figured that would give me some practical
an easy way to get started.
An easy way to get started and a way to get started using that new machine, because again, it's been a long time since I used a machine. And then Rusty would like me to make him a project bag. And so while we were at the store, I priced out some vinyl, some clear vinyl. He wants a clear bag. And I saw some other vinyl that I liked that'll look good with it. And so
I think I want a zipper because of possible moths.
Zippers. We'll see. We might have to work on that together.
Okay.
I can see that. We might have to. I've never done a zipper.
Oh, okay.
But
well,
we'll see, because I know they're already built together. You just sew them in at this point.
We'll watch a video.
Of course we will. Rusty's got his YouTube University diploma. He's a graduate of YouTube.
I've learned a lot from YouTube.
He has, but you've taught me too because I've learned it now. And like one of the rear blinkers went out on my town car, so I went to the body shop and I got the blinker, and I watched a YouTube video how to get the tail light, get in there and get it out, and I replaced it. Yay! It saved me.
You didn't have to take it into the shop?
I didn't have to take that one into the shop. Yeah. I actually did it. And I put it back together. And it all still works. The car didn't blow up. So, anyway, we had a good time at JoAnn's. And I bought a lot of fabric. So I'll have stuff to work on for a long time. And then, while we were there, Rusty bought some yarn.
Oh, yeah. So I have been curious about, I'm not sure if I'll say this right, Entrelac technique. And so I got some yarn that I think I can use for it. And I couldn't resist. It's just $347, $397. They were on clearance. And I love some of these colors. Just kind of soft and natural muted.
These are wool Ease, and they're what? Like you said, they're a blend of 80% acrylic, 20% wool.
Yeah.
So they're washable.
So, and I don't really like acrylic, but we were there, and I haven't knit with it in probably 30, 40 years because as a kid, when I did a lot with acrylic, and that's what I first bought because I didn't know how to knit, and I never even thought about it. But then it would pill up, and it would feel synthetic as I was working on it, and it's probably gotten a lot better over the years. And I've been hearing that it's been getting better. So when I was there and wanted to try something Entrelac, and had seen that the color changes kind of make the little patches, those diamond shapes, stand out because they start shifting color and then the edges show against each other. So I have all this stuff to test, and the reason I wanted to try Entrelac is because what's that?
We're going to talk about that in the next segment, though.
Oh, okay. Well, I will leave that for the next time, but I am excited to try this yarn and see how those colors come out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was my purchase at JoAnn's. I couldn't go in and just get nothing.
Of course not.
So,
okay.
Next.
So the next segment we're going to talk about is your works in progress. And I know you have several things to show us here. You also have one finished object in this group to show us.
So I was talking earlier, it seems so long ago, that I was talking about this yarn purchase. And one of the yarns I have already knit up. Here's the, what is this? Lions Brand Landscapes.
And these are all, this is like a total acrylic, isn't it?
Yeah, 100% acrylic. So I knit with it first thinking, oh, I don't mind messing it up, or I don't mind practicing with it because it's acrylic and it's actually, it's pretty. And the Entrelac, I think I got the
it's real 80s
the
jewel
basics.
tones.
Yeah. I think I got the basics of it. But one thing I didn't remember about acrylic is, you know, as you're knitting and I've got my working end of the yarn coming out my little finger here, and as it's pulling through, you get this little pile of yarn fiber that starts building up. And I remember as a kid picking that apart, getting rid of it. There's always this ring around it. This time I decided to let it go through the whole skein. I mean, as I knit the whole skein, and I got this little bead on here. Picked up the colors and got bigger. So I haven't slid it all the way off because I wanted to show you all. and anyway, I thought that was really interesting.
So this was all one skein of changing
one skein.
colors.
Yeah, one skein. So you start on the bottom of the green, and you go these half diamonds, and then you go across here, and then back the next here, and the next here, and next here, and slowly shifting colors. But they stand out because by the time the edges, by the time you pick up stitches and those edges are coming next to each other, you've moved on to a different part of the yarn. So then the color changes really stand out. And I kind of liked the back too. It looks
I'm surprised you never did this.
Very geometric.
This stitch before, because it reminds me a whole lot of your artwork.
Yeah, kind of like tumbling cubes, or is that what the name is? But so the
stuff that
So the Sweet Tea No Shade guys have a knit along, and they're wanting people to do either an intarsia or Entrelac. And I love intarsia, but because I've never done this, I thought, well, this will give me an excuse. And what I really wanted to do, I found something on Ravelry, which is I think it's a cube, but when it's stuffed, it turns into a sphere. And it's made out of square, well, just like this is made out of squares, but they're diamonds. But it's made out of squares, and the guy admits on Ravelry that he doesn't, and I'll post a link or his name or something, but he admits that he's not good at writing patterns, and if people want to help him do it, because all he has to go from are these squares and some diagonal lines that I think might be a cable that continues through it. And as never knitting Entrelac, there's no way I'm going to decipher that. I mean, I was looking for anything else. Well, how many do you cast on? Anything. And so I thought, well, if I do this first, then maybe I'll get the basics, and then maybe what he's written will make more sense. So anyway, I'm about to go back to
And
that.
you said you liked that, or you want to try it because it reminds you of Chinese puzzle balls. Is that what you were telling me?
Oh, what? No, I was talking about.
Else? Oh.
I was talking about these. I mean, when I'm rolling these up, you get the different levels down in here of the yarn going around, and it makes me think of, because that's what my parents had decorating our house, was the Chinese puzzle balls, the carved ivory, where you could see the holes through it, and then concentric spheres twist inside. And
since you grew up in the South Pacific for a few years.
For a few years, yeah. Mainly Oregon, but yeah, we were in the tropics for a few years. And so anyway, I'm looking forward to this knit along. And then I did have one. Those are all works in progress.
Oh, your scarf. Right? Yeah, I know you're also your
okay,
scarf.
Yeah.
And your rainbow patch. Those are our works in progress still.
Okay. So I saw, this was around December, and I saw this one picture on Pinterest, and it was a scarf, and the lady said in the comments that there was no pattern, and that she was just making things up as she went along, and I thought it was so beautiful.
It is.
That I wrote down, looking at the picture, I tried to write down the pattern for myself, and so this is what I've got so far. I'll kind of go. Got the sheep in there.
The waves. And the fox.
And the big flower. And as I was doing it, and I because I'm an artist, because I always want to kind of do my own thing, I decided that I was going to stop there and start designing my own sections.
Additions to add onto it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stop doing her patterns and start doing yours.
Yeah, so I was writing hers down, and I mean, I think.
Interpreting it so that you
it looks pretty close, but and then I decided I want to do something that's pertains to Dallas or Texas or something, more personal. And so we have lots of mockingbirds around here, always attacking our cats for good reason. And
it's our state bird in Texas. Too.
It's our state bird, right?
Yeah.
And so I did a picture of a mockingbird, and then I turned it into a pattern. And I am about to. When I pick the scarf
You're
up next, I'm fixing to knit a mockingbird. So there. That's my scarf that I've been working on. It could sit here for a couple of years, but
yeah,
we'll see.
Isn't that what happens with works in progress?
Yeah.
And so then you also had the patch that is...
So last week I had this started, and I finished Arne and Carlos's rainbow patch. I was debating whether to make it a double rainbow, because I could have just kept going. Double rainbow.
Far out, man. But you did one patch.
Uh-huh.
And that closes us out for Pride Month for this year.
Yeah, I wanted to have this one done.
Woo-hoo.
That's why I didn't do the double rainbow. I wanted this done for this June Pride Month podcast.
Right.
So.
And he's inserting downtown Dallas with the lights throughout the month. Have been doing pride lights on the buildings. So that's what our segment separators are, is just pictures of downtown at night.
Oh, okay.
It is.
Well, we talked about some of that, and parts of it I didn't hear earlier. So.
Well, you're the one doing editing, so I assume that's what these are in between us. And you have a pair of socks that are finished.
Oh, right.
So this is a finished works in progress.
No, I thought I laid everything out
it's a
right
finished
here.
object, but it's going in this section here.
Oh, here they are, under my artwork. So yeah, I went ahead and finished these socks, and I think they're super cool. And I have ordered more sock yarn, so I can try out different heels. I can try out a non-Euclidian heel with no holes.
And these are from me, aren't they?
These are yours.
Yay! Oh, thank you. I'm so honored. I'll love them forever.
They do feel really good.
They really do. I can't wait to wear shoes and socks again.
I can't wait for it to get below 90.
In public.
Yeah.
I've been barefoot so long, I'm not sure my shoes are going to fit when I have to go back to the office. And I just put on sandals to go to the grocery store, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, hopefully you don't need new shoes.
But I can't buy shoes online. I just don't think that would work. Because I have to try on every pair in the store, because I can pull out my size, and this pair of shoes are too big. This pair of shoes are too small. This one, they're just right. But then I have to do that for the next pair that I think is cute. You'll be there forever.
I wear 2 pairs of shoes and flip-flops, and we're at home, so I'm in the flip-flops all the time. Well, I probably didn't need to just admit that, did I? Well, okay, we're moving on to artwork, right?
Right. That's the next segment coming up.
And so
So was there enough?
I always was it. Let's do a pause.
So now we're going to talk about Rusty's artwork. He's got a show coming up in November in Santa Fe. So he's going to be working on pieces all year long. You'll have some painting pieces, and you'll have some knit pieces, knit
Kind
sculptures.
of, most of the work is going to be using the same structure,
Yeah.
which I'll show you in a second. The woodworking or the paper building, but they both kind of build the same structure that then I cover with either knitting or painting. And so when I'm starting, I start off in Photoshop just designing the image. And I know how I want the image to lay out on the 3D bas relief. You know what? This is too hard without something in my hand. So
We'll go ahead and show that.
here's
part.
some. Well, part of it's going to tip over if I, or fall off if I tip it. But here's part of it.
You can also add in some
I
overhead
build
shots.
these woodwork. These are pieces that fit together, and there's 3 more kind of tripod shapes. And these go together, and these kind of fill in some gaps, and it starts getting more filled in looking. And so this is kind of a separate step where I've got to do the woodworking. And then another step is where I've got to do the Photoshop designing the image. And then it's knitting and blocking. And I'm still figuring out how I'm going to attach the knitting, but I've started doing knitting with Lolodidits, those little mini skeins I was showing, and so I actually am in the middle of one right here. I don't think that's coming into focus, but
Yeah.
you get the idea. I mean, I'm kind of knitting three chevron shapes, and then I'll join them in a seam, and it'll turn into this 3D shape, which fits over one of these tripods.
Do you glue it to that tripod?
No.
No.
Well, you know, I've wondered about gluing it, because it would, as an artist, gonna ship the work and have other people handle it and store it, and I don't want this suddenly to turn into that,
you don't want it
or I don't
shifting.
want it shifting, and then the people think that's what I intended to do, and then it's in a show like that. And so I really want to secure it. And some of the pieces I've done so far, I've just laced the back. I'll catch both sides of that and lace it in the back, and that works. But now I haven't done it with this fingering weight yarn, and I'm just picturing it pulling the fabric too much and making scallops along the edges as I pull it at the back. So I am looking for other ways to secure it to those pieces. And like on this one, I've actually knit a couple extra columns here and a couple rows here that extend beyond where I really need the piece to be. So those will wrap around, and any scalloping I'm hoping will be on those wrapped around edges. So I'm trying to improve it here on the first few pieces, so pretty soon I'll have it down. And so anyway, I think I'll probably put in the overall image that I'm working on, so some of this will make sense. But some of these are going to be geometric, working with that structure and accentuating it. Sometimes I like to lay an image on it. It's as if an image is projected from the front of it. So I'll show a picture of one I have with a bird on it. And so from angles, that bird gets distorted. It's only in focus from the front, because I want that image to play against or almost disrupt the structure. When that 3D structure, I don't know how to describe it,
You're
but
saying
the
it.
picture takes over from the 3D structure, and I like that kind of tension. How is that working?
Right. So that when you're looking at it in the gallery and you're looking at it straight on, you see that image actually sort of as a flat 2D image that
It kind of
but as you
separates
kind of come
itself.
closer to the piece, you see, oh no, this is wrapped around a 3D surface, and as you kind of move and that tessellation kind of happens, and you're seeing the image distort, like you said.
Yeah. Yes, because and that's part of the planning is when I'm planning these shapes out. I mean, I just follow the surface.
So this is just geometric.
But let's say if I had a beak of a bird right here, it would have to be stretched because I'm going to be knitting it flat, but you're going to be looking at it at an angle and foreshortened. So I want it all to come into focus.
Yeah.
And so all that stretching I plan out in the computer first as I go from a 2D design, then I turn it into a 3D design and break it down into patterns and lay a grid over it and translate that into colored stitches, and off we go.
Yeah, there you
Or
go.
off I go.
That's what you do.
Yeah. So that's what I'm working on right now, and in a few months I'll be in my crunch time. I really already am, so I'm not sleeping well.
November is on its way. It's rushing. We're rushing toward it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to show, I mean, a lot of people ask me, how did you end up doing that? How did you come up with that? And I've been working on combining knitting ideas with my artwork for years and trying to find some way to bridge them. I always want to incorporate more aspects of myself. That's why I did the piano playing at the front. I'm looking for ways to incorporate my music into my knitting artwork and math. And so anyway, one of the experiments I did was this cutting, and this is where Hampton said I was good with scissors.
Rusty scissor hands.
So now this is going to be hard to tell, but these are individual
Hand cut.
like knit strips. So this, hand cut. And then I've been able to weave some of them. Oh, this is upside down. Like it matters.
Like it matters.
And these are just loose because I haven't woven them together. As I don't want to weave them together until I have these other ones made and cut to go up the row, because once I start weaving these together, nothing can get into them. They can't interlock except in a certain way. Otherwise, it's not like a piece of yarn that can slip through a whole bunch of ways.
And this is drawing paper, right?
Yeah, so I print on drawing paper, and it's actually, this is kind of a skin color and sand, and it transitions up to sky. It's from an old 70s photo, and that dot is actually like a palm tree, which you can't see because it was a real faint image. And that the sky had turned kind of greenish because it's an old 60s photo, and the sand. And my dad is down here, and he's got my sister on his lap, and I think that's his knee or something. And so anyway, this will actually be a family portrait, a large, like 4-foot square portrait when it's done, if it ever finishes, because it was starting to give me some really bad, I guess, carpal tunnel. I spent a few weeks doing that.
So it may live as a work in progress and never become a finished object, but it's those experiments and those pieces that get you started. I did start drawing and painting. So this is like a graphite drawing from years ago of an iris, and I printed it out a number of times. And well, this is actually a different image. I didn't have both before and after of one thing, but then I would turn it into a print, multiple prints, and then weave them back together. Cut them out and weave them back together.
Yeah. And so that's what I was doing right before I started doing this other structure, which I call Cube Network. But it's kind of always been inspired by the structure of knitting, how the yarn, the same shape, goes back and forth and holds on to itself and extends out. And for years I feel like I've been making paper fabrics. So it feels so good to bring knitting into it, and I have so many reasons for what I'm doing that I've been thinking of for years that now I'm getting to flesh out. So
Yeah,
that's probably it for my knitting. That's enough for one day.
Okay, now we're going to do your shout outs and wrap up the show.
Oh yeah, so I was contacted by one guy, and it's really interesting how there are more male knitters wanting to share what they're doing, and I mean I'm one of them. Maybe we're one of them, and so I heard about Great Scott Knits, and he does his own dyeing. So it's interesting. He'll do a podcast of his knitting, and then he'll do one of his dyeing that's usually shorter, and so he alternates. But it's interesting seeing someone doing their own yarn.
Yeah, you might have to wait till you have a studio with running water and drains.
Yeah, his husband wasn't happy about it either.
Yeah.
At least I'm not doing clay.
No, that's what he was doing when we met.
Clay,
but we didn't live together then.
And then, moving on.
Yes.
Curly seams, and I heard about this one from Fiber Hustle. Chip mentioned it, and they're two cousins, British women cousins.
Oh, they're cute. I like them.
Yeah, I love them. Tracy and Emma, and they both knit. They both quilt. I think they probably do other things too.
They sew their clothes. They make clothes. Because was it Emma showing us some trousers she was making, and then what was the other one's name? Tracy had a wraparound blouse. It was really nice. It was cool and looked good on her. That she had made. Yeah, I that was the latest episode. I do watch these, even if it's in the background while I'm
He hears
reading.
them.
I hear them, and then I'm like looking.
My studio's around a couple corners, and the doors are open, and so he's in there in the dining room working on the table, and
working on my bank stuff, working on check fraud.
He's starting to
quit stealing money, people. No, don't do that. I need a job.
No, do stop.
Right, do stop. I'll get another job.
I really like them. They are so funny. They are doing, they're having to do it remotely. So they've got a split screen thing going on, and they're anxious to get back to it. The stores where they work are just, or maybe it's their stores. I really am just getting to know them. But are like, they don't receive that many people at once.
Right.
And they discourage people from touching too much, touching the yarn, and it's really different. I imagine it's good to get out and back to a little bit of normal.
Yeah, but and they said they're in southern England. I don't know where, but my friend Brian in Bournemouth, he and his partner Tony, or his husband, live in Bournemouth. Brian and I used to work together at the last bank I was at. He was in the Bournemouth office, and I was in the Dallas office. But we get to know each other on the phone. Anyway, we're friends on Facebook, and then he just started walking back to work this week and going back to the office, and then his route takes him right along the beach. And he posted a picture today on his way home. The beach was packed. Just, you couldn't stir it with a stick. And I was like, and I said to him, y'all look like Texas over there. Y'all need to get away from each other. Your cases will be going back up like ours are. So
yeah, our governor opened things up. Our numbers are going probably the highest.
Y'all all know this
in the country or the world. If we're the highest in the country, we're the highest in the world.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah, us, Arizona, Michigan, Florida, and California's on the rise, and they had it under control.
Well, they're working at it, and our governor just changed back and was trying to undo that, put the genie back in the bottle.
Put the genie back in the bottle, yeah. Good luck with that.
So we are trying to keep this under an hour.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes I'm like, okay, we're going to move on.
We're at,
and that's what I'm looking at the little clock here. We are 55:38.
And so also Corey Eichelberger.
Oh
I
yeah,
love her.
she is awesome. I Rock Knits.
Colorful knits.
Colorful Knits. I just like hearing the things she wants to share. She shares her cooking and things that have happened to her around town, and she has good, useful tips on. Like she had a sweater that she couldn't wear. Now the styles have changed, and she talked about taking it apart and by taking some stitches in on the side and then unwinding it down, she ended up with more yarn when she knitted it smaller, and it was longer and it fit, and all of a sudden she's able to wear her sweater, and that makes so much sense. So anyway, she's
in
great.
Minneapolis. So what's I-35 like, Corey? I know that bridge caved in a few years ago. It's I-35.
Oh.
All the way. Danger. I know.
Okay. He just wants to get out of town, so he's thinking where
We're
the
out
highway
of
goes.
here. But there's nowhere to go, and I know that, and I'm trying to be cool about it.
Yeah, well, every other day he's wanting to get out.
The European ones won't let us come there. People in New Jersey and New York have now said people from our states can't come visit, or we stay in quarantine. Well, I don't have 2 weeks to stay in quarantine. Anyway, we'll talk about those another time. So, anyway, that's everything we had on our list. Leave my brooch alone.
Okay,
that's everything
well,
we had on our list. So,
thanks for joining
that's
us.
our episode. Thank y'all for watching.
And I'm already working on next episode. So
We are. We have big plans.
Yes, we do. I'm anxious, but
He's anxious. He was so ready to get started this month on it, but nope. We're waiting until July for. Can we say it? You want to say it?
no.
Okay.
No. Okay. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Oh, wait.